Okay, what the heck is...
If you fall in, don't take me with you.
There.
Good evening. We are in Gainsborough on the Tidal Trent on the floating pontoon. We've been here since yesterday evening and we're waiting for the tide to turn so that we can ride it to West Stockwith.
Yep.
And the Chesterfield Canal.
It's a bit past 6:30 on a Friday. And we are going to be going that way, and the water is currently going this way because we're facing upstream, and the tide is currently moving upstream. When the tide slackens and turns, that's when we call and tell them we're on our way. And it's about a 45-minute trip-ish down there.
There's another boat going with us. They turned up this morning. So there'll be two of us going into West Stockwith Lock, and luckily it fits two boats. So
yeah. They were supposed to go all the way from Torksey to West Stockwith Lock for this morning's tide, but they didn't actually make it here fast enough, so they were diverted to here to wait and go with us. So looking forward to doing it with two boats.
I'm obviously nervous because, tidal river, turn in the tide.
I'm not nervous because it's quite low tide. Like, we aren't anywhere near as high up as we were when we came up the first time.
We watched the video when we did it before, except we came from Kidby to West Stockwith, so from further downstream. And
we were really pushing against a very high...
Yeah, it took 3 hours, or over 3 hours, and it was like a almost flood tide.
Yeah, well, the flow on the river was so high on that time that we really got rammed into the wall. This time, I don't think we're going to have the same problem.
So the tide's still moving out. It could be like another half hour to an hour.
Yeah.
Because it was quite late yesterday.
Yeah, but you can see in the we've got the flow in the center.
Yeah.
But out to the side, it's already starting to slow.
Maybe.
I think we're not getting quite as much flow as we were before.
Oh, nerves. There's no reason to be nervous, Joanne.
Other than the fact that earlier today, when I'm standing outside talking to the other boaters, a crew of fire response guys show up looking for their paddles, which apparently they left their paddles when there was a rescue or an attempted rescue. I'm not really clear on exactly what happened, but they had to get into the water and they left their paddles on the pier here. And so two of the older guys are really joshing the younger guy because apparently his job was to pick up and collect the paddles and he didn't do that, so the paddles have disappeared. So we were being asked, had we seen any paddles? And we've been told to look out for paddles. But among all the talk from these men who could appear in calendars about paddling things, they decided to tell us the story of somebody pulling into West Stockwith Lock and literally ramming into the lock and ending up in the water. And
two people ended up in the water.
Yeah, but apparently one of them grabbed the other one and said, basically, if I'm going in, you're going with me.
I don't think it was deliberate. I think they were just grabbing onto the nearest thing to steady themselves.
Yeah, which happened to be their spouse.
So I might sit at the front when we go. And I'll be cowering on the floor now.
I'm just like, why did you tell that story?
And then you told the story. You told it to me straight away.
Well, yeah. I hesitated briefly.
All right. Let's wait for the tide. Usually I say, let's get going. But
the engine's warm now. The dog is emptied. The people are emptied. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
We're ready to go.
We get a call from the lovely lockkeeper at West Stockwith who tells us it's time for us to set off. Michael's spoken to the other boat and arranged that they'll go first. They've only had their boat a few weeks, and I know Michael feels more comfortable being the boat that's following so he can see what's going on in front of us. See you on the other side! As both boats are pointing upstream, we'll need to first make a turn in the river to face the right direction. The river's wide here, so the turn's fairly easy, despite the force of the water coming in. It's around 7 p.m. and the sun will soon be setting, but we've got the perfect weather for an evening cruise. The tide hadn't turned, but we left.
Yeah.
Because?
Basically, it's relatively low water right now, and the lockkeeper gave me a call and said the tide has turned and is starting to drop where we are.
Where they are.
Yeah, where they are. So may as well head off now. We'll push against it for a few minutes and then it'll come with us, and we'll go slack and we'll just be able to make good time, and then it'll start dropping right around the time that we get there. which will give us the ability to turn nose up towards the lock relatively easily and make the turn in. So
we're on our way.
Yeah. Me, I'm thinking about all these seagulls on all these corrugated roofs.
What are you thinking about them?
How much time and how much garbage does an army of seagulls need to cave in a corrugated tin roof?
Oh. You mean they haven't done it yet, but they might be working on it?
Well, eventually, that corrugated tin roof is going to be just another guano island, right?
Would it be the kind of guano that someone wants to come and harvest?
Well, that's what those islands were. It was covered in tens of thousands of years of compacted bird poop, right? And it was more valuable than gold, which makes sense, because you can't grow carrots in gold. On the map in terms of
Well, I haven't been following it, I must confess. I was trying to see if I could find a mile marker, but they stopped. I think we're here. Or we could be here, I just have no idea. Let me try and work it out. All right, no, we're here. Stay near centre, shoal near bank. There's some new apartments, there they are. So you see those apartments? That's the orange thing. So we're just coming up to about halfway, and Michael thinks the tide's gone into slack, finally. Yep. So it should get a bit quicker then, in theory.
We'll get quicker as it drops. Right now we're kind of moving at the speed of our revs, sort of thing. We're not pushing anymore, at least.
Yeah.
Got to keep an eye out for the garbage in the water.
What garbage?
Well, for one thing, 3 paddles.
Oh, yeah.
And here are the apartments at Moorton that dominate the riverbank and provided the means by which we could locate our position on the map. The tide has turned now and we're travelling with the flow of water as it flows downstream. Michael spots this murmuration in the sky in front of us. It didn't come out very well on camera, but it was quite special to watch in person. We spot the roofs of the buildings of the riverside village of Waterways above the trees, and then we see some friendly fishermen waving at the water's edge. It's really rare for us to travel in the evening, so it's actually quite nice to enjoy the sunset after the tide forced us to travel so late. I just wish I didn't have the worry of the turn into West Stockwith hanging over me for the whole journey.
We just saw a mother duck and some ducklings, and I said it was very irresponsible of her to bring her ducklings on the tidal river. Michael dismissed my opinion.
I just had to point out that, well, I mean, there's many things I could have pointed out, like they're waterproof and they float, you know. But no, my main thing is that from the duck's perspective, the duck hasn't got the slightest clue this is a tidal river. The duck is just like, this lake is moving.
No, it's moving the other way.
This lake is shallow. This lake is deep. Okay, what the heck is...
What?
He's putting out a bunch of black smoke.
Oh, shit. Is he still moving?
I got no idea what he's doing. The way he's chugging, I think he might have been reversing. But he's burning oil.
Well, he's still moving. He still looks like he's got power. Unless he's just getting carried on the tide.
No, his prop's turning. Well, for all I know, he might also just be doing a very large amount of vaping.
We've been following the other boat the whole way, but we've tried to leave a substantial gap so they have enough time to safely make the turn into the lock before we arrive. We've reached the village of West Stockwith now, and around the next bend we should see the buildings next to the lock.
Alright, your turn.
No, not funny.
As we round the last bend, our eyes are fully focused on the other boat. We can see the lock keeper on the lock side giving directions and watch as they perfectly turn into the lock. Now it's our turn. We travel past the lock and then swing around in the channel to face back upstream.
Okay, on line to him.
If you fall in, don't take me with you.
Fair enough.
The lock keeper is waiting and ready to direct us in. Pushing against the water now, we're travelling really slowly, making the approach into the lock entrance really controlled.
Slow it down a little bit. Slow it down. Okay, head for me. Slow it down a little bit more. Okay, head for me. I'm going to bring you on further than you think I'm going to. Then I'm going to say, go for it. Full throttle, hard over. Now. Perfect. Slot in next to him, I'll pass you a rope. I'd like a rope both ends if you can.
Okay. There we go. We're in.
West Stockwith Lock is quite deep, so rather than boaters having to throw their lines up, they have lines attached to the bollards that are thrown down for us to hold on to. Then the water is slowly let in to raise us up to the canal level. We're given directions to a mooring we can use in the basin for the night.
Well, thanks for the help getting in.
There's no pontoons in this basin, so you need to reverse into the moorings, and then you tie the centre line to these posts.
Shivering. So cold. So cold.
It's not cold.
I am so cold.
I suppose I'm wearing more than you. We made it. We're in West Stockwith Basin. There's a party going on over there.
They're listening to Sultans of Swing. It's an okay song. Oh, so cold. Oh, shivering cold. Really cold.
How was your trip apart from being cold?
It was good, other than the cold. I can see the power station we left earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not really all that
Doesn't
far.
seem that far, does it?
No.
I can see the moon.
Yeah. But that was good fun. Turning in was easy, really straightforward. There's no
drama.
the exciting bit was when we were swinging around inside the lock because of the water coming in.
I didn't see the turn. I was hugging George on the
Turn
engine
was
board.
nothing. We got a little closer to the wall than I thought we were going to before we turned in, but that was because of where I was coming over to.
Yeah.
So there was a brief moment where I was like, well, we could have a scraping sound. No, it's fine.
So yeah, back on the Chesterfield, and adventures on the Chesterfield
Yes.
coming.
Which hopefully will not involve another pandemic. When mooring up on a tidal river, it's important to moor against the flow of the water at the time you arrive. If you're traveling with the flow, continue past the mooring, turn around, and come back to the mooring with the flow against you. This makes your approach much slower and ensures you've got positive flow across the rudder, which gives you more tiller control and makes your approach much safer and easier. The boat that joined us on the pontoons at Gainsborough hadn't really considered this, so when they tried to come into moor, they were riding the tide and traveling quite fast. As a result of the speed and force of the water, they couldn't get the boat over to the pontoon. To slow, they had to reverse, but that meant that now there was negative flow across the rudder, which forces the tiller to one side and makes steering much more difficult, if not impossible. You can see the river carrying them away as they try to slow to moor. While their boat did have enough power to reverse against the flow to back up, on their second attempt they turned around to take another shot, but unfortunately still traveling from the trickier direction. By this time, Joe's come out to try and help. I'm not there because at this moment I've pottered off somewhere silly to try my first Yorkshire tea. As you can see, the more they try to get their bow over, the more the stern swings out. In an attempt to get enough flow over the rudder to move the stern over, they speed up and crash into the pontoon. It's an easy mistake to make, but nothing about this situation is safe or controlled. From lots of experience, Joe already knows that if she pulls their bow line, their stern will swing out as the boat pivots around its middle, so she automatically gives them some slack. The skipper asked her to pull them in, so against her better judgment, she did what he'd asked and demonstrated physics. Sure enough, their stern went further into the flow. As they swung around, Joe realized that they could use the bow line to swing the boat round into the mooring, but it's quite hard to communicate with another boater when they're busy and focused on the plan they've got in mind. You never know how experienced they are or what reaction you're going to get, and of course it's really hard to hear and be heard when you're standing on top of a high-revving engine. He's still trying to use the engine to push the stern over against the flow, and it's just not working. He wants the bow pulled in, thinking he can use the engine to bring the stern in. But the flow, of course, is still pushing the stern around, and in these circumstances you have to learn that the engine will lose and the tide will win.
Throw the rope on board.
If you moor in this way, then you're going more steady against the tide.
They ask Joe to throw the line back so they can try again, but she's finally able to communicate that it would be better for them to just come in against the tide.
So should we come in this way, the same way that...
Okay, walk us up then.
So small bump to perseverance, and 2 minutes later they're safely moored, facing into the flow. This is just something a bit strange to me about visiting Gainsborough again. This is Marshall's Yard. A large, kind of rebuilt area and shopping complex and everything right around the corner from Gainsborough Central train station. And what's weird for me is just, well, basically in March 2020, after the COVID pandemic had begun, after I'd become aware of the fact that it was spreading around the world in January, and then by February it was starting to look pretty scary, and Joe and I went down to Heathrow to fly to Vancouver to go see my mother, and then we had to cancel the flight to come back because the lockdowns starting to show up on the horizon. Like, the panic had started to begin, and countries had started to close down their borders, and it looked like we weren't going to be able to, if we made the flight, we weren't going to be able to march back. And so we canceled the flight, got on the train with George, came back to Gainsborough train station. We came here to Marshall's Yard to do some shopping, and this is where we first encountered grocery stores that had been emptied out. People were panic buying and hoarding, and that had already begun, both here at the M&S and a little over there. And yeah, from here we traveled over to West Stockwith, where our boat was, and started our move towards Retford, where we eventually ended up getting stuck for lockdown. But it's just strange to come back. You know, I knew I was going to see it again, but I didn't quite expect the feelings I get when I'm walking into such strangely familiar places. We'll see what happens when we get to Retford as well, I guess. Sven Forkbeard, son of Danish King Harald Bluetooth, born in 963 AD, became king on Christmas Day, 1013, and survived for 5 weeks when he was killed on the 3rd of February. But he did make Gainsborough the capital of England. And Sven Forkbeard is so famous, they named a Wetherspoons after him. So you didn't see what just happened.
Well, I put my hair in your face, because I gathered what just happened.
Right in
the
my
fact you're going,
mouth.
because you went, oh, okay, and then, so it's pretty obvious that I'd done something to annoy you.
You hadn't done something to annoy me, you'd done something to annoy my tongue. Stuck your little billy bob in my mouth.
I'll do it again if you're not careful. Why is it, when we went to Kiwi, we were going into the sun, because it was morning, and when we're going this way, we're going into the sun.
Yep. Luckily, in both cases, not actually going into the sun, or it'd be a lot warmer.
Oh Mike, I'm very nervous now.
Huh? Oh, well, I wouldn't be nervous. I mean, you know, for us. We've got the throw line right there. We now know the horn works.
I don't know how it works.
Okay, well,
Hold on to that.
bit of instructions is you open this bit up, you grab the thing in there, and then you throw, or so you grab that and you
don't know how it works, do you?
No. Open the bag and grasp the free end of the rope. Throw the bag with your other hand. When repacking the bag, do not coil the rope. Okay.
Now we know. Open the bag, grab the end, throw the bag.
Grasp the free end of the rope. Throw the bag with your other hand.
Are we okay?
Yep.
You sure?
Yep.